Oh my. Holy, 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 holy. What is happening? This patch is insane. It is liquid gold. And I'll prove it to you.
Something sinister.
If you look here, something pops up on the left side of the screen.
Rot. Plague.
A liquid golden demon harpy. Why the heck is that there? I have no clue. Yo, what's up people, Doom here. Are you guys as excited about this leak as I am? Holy crap, it is big. Oh my god. First up we have these wolves here. I have not seen this monster model before. Could be an interesting Spectre, definitely worth testing. Now here we have the liquid golden demon harpy. It looks freaking amazing. This monster usually comes from beyond. The blood pools on the ground do look like beyond portals. I'm not sure why this was showcased so specifically. Could be a change to the demon harpy, or it could be a monster that uses the same monster model but is actually a different one. I'm not too sure exactly. Could also not really mean anything specific, but it is probably a good idea to keep this one in mind. Now here's another monster that looks interesting. It seems to be a Spriggan themed monster. Not sure if it's gonna be spectrable, we will have to see. Here's another two giant Spriggan-like monsters that look really interesting. There also seem to be a couple of bandit-themed monsters running around. These generally appear in Acts 2 and 6 in the Western Forest, among a few other areas. If you like hunting for new specters, it is probably a good idea to keep a bit of a closer eye on the monsters in these acts. The Treant and the Spriggan Skeleton, for example, are Spriggan-like monsters currently in the game that inflict grasping veins, whereas the Boar Acolyte is a bandit that uses a version of Reeve. There could be undocumented changes to these monsters that might be of interest. You can see a couple of skeleton scorpions here. They do seem to leave corpses, but might not be spectrable. It is another one to keep an eye on. On the left here, you can see some more Spriggan mobs. They look like the Spriggan skeleton, but the Spriggan skeleton doesn't usually shoot out a golden shrouded projectile. So definitely another one to keep an eye on. In the bottom left, you can see a giant green explosion. This seemed to be coming from a monster that did a slam. Probably another one to keep an eye on. Boom! The return of Ultimatum. This league is going to be so much fun. Ultimatum does seem to be quite difficult content, so I am a little bit worried about Spectre survivability. We might need to invest quite a bit more in their defenses this time around. There is quite a few Ultimatum mobs that can be spectered that look really good on paper. Don't tell anyone. Shh. If Ultimatum mobs return fully, this also means we will see the return of the Ward Arak. This is a Spectre that uses a version of Ensnaring Arrow, which makes enemies count as moving. It can be a very powerful addition to a bleed build. This is another huge and amazing change. We are able to purchase corpses with League mechanic currency that we can then summon. In the background you can see the Hydra in action. Mark did mention that the Hydra might be quite squishy. If we look at Path of Exile database values, the Hydra life pool is actually very high. I'm expecting these corpses to be entirely different monsters however, but variations of existing ones, meaning Path of Exile database values are likely not relevant. Generally, Spectres that have a lot of abilities have longer skill animation times or cooldowns, leading to DPS downtime. I'm very much in a wait, see and test mindset on this one, and I am very excited to play around with these. The minion god himself, Gazi, did raise a very good point. If a best Spectre is found, the value of the corpse might be quite high in Trade League. If you are in the situation of upgrading your chest piece, for example, and you accidentally remove or swap out your Spectre gem, you might lose your Spectres. Similarly, if you have your Spectre socketed in your weapon and you accidentally hit the weapon swap button, you might also lose your Spectres. If these Spectres become a divine each, this might turn out to be quite problematic. I do hope they do not become too rare and are also not too squishy. If they do become rare and expensive, I might just need to start selling cookies or something. The Replica Covenant is a huge, unique item. Instead of supporting the skill with added chaos damage, it supports skills with added cold damage. This is a very large amount of added cold damage and will likely synergize very well with things like Elemental Summon Raging Spirits and the new ranged animate weapon. Another thing to note is that instead of giving skills an additional life cost that the normal Covenant has, it gives them an additional energy shield cost. This means that we will be able to use the Replica Covenant with Chaos Inoculation. This is a very welcome change, as the Spider Silk Robe is an energy shield base. Next up, we have some of the previews of Spectre corpses. First one is a Fiery Cannonball. It casts Firestorm, uses Flame Dash, and it becomes empowered if a frozen cannonball is nearby. And when it is empowered, it will cast Cremation. Cremation could be pretty fun. I'm not sure, however, we don't have any details as to how much damage these skills are gonna do. We are gonna have to wait for Path of Exile database to show these values. We'll see. The next one is the Frozen Cannonball. It casts Glacial Cascade. Glacial Cascade can be interesting. Sometimes it can hit multiple times. I have a video on the Lunar Sworn Winter Mage that uses a version of Glacial Cascade. When empowered, it will trigger an Ice Nova on hit. Now, if the Glacial Cascade is able to hit multiple times, we might be able to trigger multiple Ice Novas, so the damage could be pretty high. We'll just have to wait and see again though. Next one is the Dark Marionette. This one reforms after being killed. This could be like a resummon mechanic, so we do not have to worry too much about their health pool. There's no additional information on these, so I don't know. And then the last one is the Hydra. You can see it uses similar skills to the normal Guardian of the Hydra. It does cast Hatred, however, which is not something that the normal Hydra does. This is also another clue that leads me to believe that these corpses will be completely separate versions of monsters and are not currently in the game at all. Next up is the Wildwood Primalist Ascendancy. Now they did say you can swap your Ascendancies, so I wonder if we can buy corpses that we need from the Warlock Ascendancy and then maybe swap to the Wildwood Primalist. There seems to be a lot of variability in this Ascendancy, so this might actually be the one that turns out to be pretty good for Spectres and Minions. Another unique I found kind of interesting was the Pragmatism. It gives +12 to level socketed skill gems, but also gives you a penalty of -2 to level socketed skill gems per gem. So if you have one gem socketed in this chess piece, it will give it 10 levels. The thing that this made me think of the most was something like Unearth to generate a really high level corpse. I am not sure about other use cases, and I do think a chess piece slot is quite costly for just this purpose. But there might be some pretty cool niche mechanic with this one. Next up is the Transfigured Gems. Now, there's so much here. There's going to be over 100 of these. They look incredibly cool. The first one is the Raised Zombie of Falling. This one was really funny. I think it's gonna deal the same damage as the default attack a raised zombie has. Not sure on this though, there's no values listed. I do not think it can trigger minion instability as the zombie instantly dies, therefore never reaching low life to be able to trigger minion instability. I think there could be some really cool synergy with Spell Cascade and Unleash, and maybe being able to overlap the impacts that the falling zombies create on single target, but we will have to see. Then we have the Detonate Dead of Scavenging. 34.5% of a corpse life is quite a lot, but there is a lot of variability in corpse life. This means it is not very reliable. The other thing is that it has a less damage penalty for ailments, so we do not get the comfortability of something like Ignite. We are also not able to use Detonate Dead of Scavenging on corpses created by skills, so things like Unearth or Desecrate. I did immediately think of the unique Akuna's Will, but this will probably not work either. Next one, and probably one of my favorite ones, is the Animate Weapon of Ranged Arms. This seems really strong. The fact that we are finally able to turn our lingering blades into bows is awesome. This is probably gonna be one of the really strong minion builds this league. It also has really good synergy with a Replica Covenant, maybe. You could also opt to go for an Impale version of this. We will have to see what happens with this skill, but it is quite a strong skill, I think. Now let's move on to the patch notes. First one I want to talk about is the Soul's Wick. This is the jewel that was mainly used for Flicker Shade builds. It gives +2 to maximum number of specters and gives them 800 to 1000 crit chance, meaning they would pretty much always crit. It also gave them a base duration of 20 seconds, however. We circumvented this by using Phantasmal Desecrate with a high amount of quality, preferably 100%, to almost always spawn Forgotten Corpses. And the only Forgotten Corpse available was the Flicker Shade. I have a slight feeling we might be seeing more Forgotten Corpses, but this is Copium, and I'm not sure, but we will have to see where the Flicker Shade build lands in this case. Maybe on a gem, who knows. Then we have the Anima Stone. They removed the +1 modifier to maximum number of summoned golems. This does mean that the other +1 to summon golems is still there, the one that requires 3 primordial jewels. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I also feel they could have went more aggressive on this approach. The jewels are pretty expensive, especially at league start, gating golem builds a lot behind them. I still think we would need the golem jewels to play golems in a proper fashion, but I don't know, maybe we get some really good reforged gems. I would love to be able to play a flame golem or a lightning golem build. We will see. Next up we have the Dead Reckoning unique jewel. This one has been completely changed and the vendor recipe has been removed. Skeleton mages are probably gonna appear on a reforged gem. I hope this makes them even easier to access compared to the Dead Reckoning unique jewel. The unique jewel now gives skeletons added chaos damage based on the energy shield of your equipped shield. I don't think this is significant enough. It might be a small increase for like a normal poison skeleton setup, or maybe something with iron mass. I don't know. Raised Spectre also got changed. The quality grants elemental resistance instead of minion movement speed. And I think with this league, we're definitely gonna need more tankiness, so this resistance is very welcome. The offerings also got changed. The quality of all of them now provides increased effect. This is really nice, as normally you would have to get alternate versions, especially for bone offering. Yeah, just a good change. This is another pretty big change. The Ashes of Stars had its reservation efficiency removed completely. This might seem like a really big nerf, but we don't really know what reforged gems are gonna bring, so quality might be way more powerful, so Ashes of Stars might still be a really good amulet. The Replica Dragonfang's Flight unique amulet got a slight nerf too, pretty much 5% across the board. Still a really strong amulet, probably still really strong for Spectres too. Not too bad. Something else to notice is that they fixed an issue where Corrupting Cry support did not mention it cannot modify the skills of minions. This means it's just not gonna work on Spectres. They did fix a bug where Urgent Orders support did not support Raised Spectre, so that does now work on Spectres, but Urgent Orders is the least interesting one, whereas Corrupting Cry was the interesting one. So, kinda sad. Then the last thing I want to talk about is physical to lightning support. It would be good to keep an eye on this, because if we get additional conversion from this, it might be a really strong option for some Spectre builds. If you think I was too rambly in this video, let me know. If you think I sound like a huge nerd, you're goddamn right.
I have something to say. People are hanging over the guardrails, banging on doors. Windows are shattering. So now, only one question remains. Are you ready?